Coming up, Part 107 is here. We walk you down the two separate paths to certification. Find out what you need to do if you want to fly drones for money.
Plus, it's a high-tech turboprop. We fly the Piper M600. See why the flagship was worth the wait. Hot and high, not your style? How about a classy biplane? We take you inside the Waco Aircraft factory. See where these classic beauties are born.
Plus, fighting for Santa Monica and the excitement of drone racing. AOPA Live this week is straight ahead.
Experience the thrill from closer than ever before when the Ultimate Motorsports Series takes to the sky. The Red Bull Air Race World Championship is coming to Indianapolis Motor Speedway October 1st and 2nd. Tickets now on sale.
Suddenly there are going to be a lot more pilots. Welcome to AOPA Live this week. I'm Melissa Rudinger.
And I'm Tom Haynes. So Melissa, big news about little drones this week. What's it all mean?
Yes, this week there's a new remote pilot certificate. And in fact, on the first day that it became available, over 3,000 folks took the test. Wow. So this is going to be a very, very big and growing part of the pilot community. And the FAA administrator says that this is just the beginning.
The FAA forecasts there could be as many as 600,000 unmanned aircraft used commercially during the first year after this rule is in place.
That rule, of course, is the new Part 107, which regulates drones weighing less than 55 pounds and allows for commercial operations. Huerta and Secretary of Transportation Anthony Fox announced the new rule at a Washington press conference. Fox said the commercial drones could add $82 billion to the economy in the next decade.
And by 2025 could be supporting as many as 100,000 new jobs.
So Melissa, all these new pilots coming in, how likely is it, do you think, that they're going to make the transition from flying unmanned aircraft to manned aircraft?
So if you just listen to some anecdotal evidence, quite a bit of an impact. There are lots of drone pilots that are making that transition, and we're hopeful that it is a gateway to manned aviation.
Yeah, that would be great. So you may be asking yourself, how do I become a remote pilot? Well, there are two paths, one for current pilots and a separate one for everyone else. Our own Paul Harrop has the tale of two new drone pilots, each taking a different path.
This zipper is a hangar door. This phantom drone is an aircraft, and Chris Rose just qualified for his remote pilot certificate.
The home point has been updated. Take off.
I don't think it's really sank in yet. I've only had it for a couple of days.
He's letting me tag along for a practice flight.
I've been flying the drone for a while, but I guess I feel maybe a greater sense of responsibility now.
Chris is a world-class photographer. Many of the photos you see in AOPA Pilot come from his lens. But the commercial drone certificate will be a game changer, allowing him to get angles that you just can't get any other way.
It definitely gives you an extra arrow in your quiver, I guess, when it comes to putting together video packages.
And with the precision of an archer, Chris keeps his eye on the target. But Chris wasn't always buzzing about actually becoming a pilot.
I was sort of in the middle of flight training when September 11th happened, and so many regulations popped up.
But now Chris is a pilot and awaits his certificate under Part 107. John Collins is the chief flight instructor for the AOPA Air Safety Institute. He's been a CFI for years, but also earned his remote pilot certificate this week.
I kind of fell into this. I was not looking to do any specific drone operations.
But if there's one thing John loves as much as flying, it's being a scout leader. And when a training course director wanted some aerial shots, John earned another merit badge from the FAA.
And I thought, well, I can use a drone and take those pictures for you.
And that led him to take the FAA's online course.
It was pretty straightforward, a good review of regulations, airspace, things I needed to know as a drone operator, a little bit different from being an airplane pilot.
For current pilots, the drone ticket is actually pretty easy.
So it's a 2-hour course that you take, and then you go on through IACRA and become a 107 pilot.
Kat Swain is AOPA's drone guru. She says it's a bit more involved for non-pilots. You've got to go to an FAA knowledge testing center.
You take a 60-question FAA Part 107 test on different subject areas.
Once you pass that, you fill out a form on IACRA, submit to a background check from Big Brother at TSA, and like that, you're a pilot. But don't fire up the quadcopter just yet. Chris says the test for non-pilots is not something to just drone over.
Just because of working for AOPA, I knew a little bit, but I think I knew just enough to think that I knew more than I did.
But with some study, you'll be buzzing about your new ticket in no time.
And joining us now in the studio is AOPA photographer Chris Rose. Chris, congratulations on earning that pilot certificate. I know that's a big accomplishment for you.
Thank you. I'm excited about it.
Well, tell us, the FAA kind of has a history of sneaking some landmines into its written tests. Did you notice any gotchas in this one?
You know, I did actually find a few gotchas in it. I started out with by going to the FAA site and taking the Part 61 test, and felt like that would kind of prep me for taking the Part 107 test for non-pilots. And I felt pretty confident coming out of that. But when I started studying for the non-pilot test, I realized that there was a lot of information that I didn't know. And then when I actually took the test, I realized that there was some information that sounded a lot like the questions that were in the study guide, but actually there was just a few minor tweaks to them. And as you know, just a couple of words can make a big difference between a right question and a wrong question.
Well, they can't make it too easy on you. Tell me, what did you use to prepare for the test?
Well, I used ASA's study guide. I think they did a pretty good job. When I first went through the study guide prior to taking the test, I realized that there was a lot of information, to cover, more than I even expected. And I thought for a while that maybe because they didn't know what was actually going to be on the test, that maybe the information was almost a little too comprehensive for drone pilots. But when I went to take the test, I realized that a lot of that information did appear on the test. So I'm glad I went a more formal route with studying.
Glad you studied hard on that. What was it that you had to spend the most time studying to really comprehend?
Well, the majority of the test, probably at least 50% of the test, seemed to be airspace questions. And as you know, airspace is just a really complicated, it's complicated to
Sure.
wrap your head around, and especially in this area it is. So I tried to focus on that, but that was probably the stuff that I found the hardest to comprehend. There was also some weather questions on there, things like reading METARs and TAFs, and that was a little tricky for me also. But
well, congratulations. We all look forward to what you're going to be able to do with the drone in AOPA Pilot and here for us on AOPA Live, so really excited about that. And if you would like to follow Chris's footsteps and study, the FAA has a website with all the information you need. You can find that link there on your screen. So Tom, a very exciting time to be in aviation. We're seeing an influx of certificated pilots, even if their aircraft are a little bit smaller.
Right, and when we welcome those, congratulations, Chris. We'll look forward to seeing some of that footage start to show up in the show, and also some still photography in the magazine coming from the drones. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. So, Melissa, we've heard from some pilots, though, fixed-wing pilots, manned pilots, with some concerns about the drones coming online, and especially their presence near airports, the threat that it might be for manned aircraft. You were on the Part 107 committee that helped draft these rules. Is there protection in there for us near airports especially?
So those concerns are why this rule was so important. The number one, what we had at top of mind in that rulemaking committee was safety. Safety and access. And so we wanted to provide access for these aircraft and in a safe manner, and I think we've done that with the rules. And the rules are important because they provide education, and just as importantly, if you have some rogue operators, enforcement opportunities for the FAA to bring those folks either into compliance or out of the game. And so that's why it's so important. But most of all, it brings them into our community, and we want them part of our community of safety that we have here. In fact, Earl Lawrence, a longtime aviator who runs the FAA drone office, wants to welcome these new pilots.
Well, I think we should all be responsible aviators, whether you're flying the Cessna or whether you're flying the Phantom. And I think that's something that we have to stress, and we have to invite folks into the aviation community.
Earl's point is that we have a safety culture, and we want to welcome drone pilots so that they understand and embrace safety the way that we do.
Well, another action this week from the FAA, this time a shot across Santa Monica's bow. The agency is threatening legal action against the city. Last week, we told you about the laundry list of anti-airport actions the City Council voted to take, including shortening the runway, kicking out the FBOs, stop selling avgas, not grant leases to aviation businesses, and closing the airport as soon as possible. Well, the feds, guess what, didn't like that. In this letter to the mayor, the FAA said it was prepared to pursue all legal remedies if the City Council attempts to restrict leases or operations without complying with federal laws. One of our AOPA experts said it was the strongest letter he's seen come out of the FAA in quite some time. So, once again, Santa Monica out burning money, taxpayer money, in these lawsuits against the FAA. If they would just accept the responsibility to keep the airport open, certainly would be a lot easier on taxpayers, I got to say.
Not optimistic that they will, but we can keep hoping.
I hope so.
So changing gears here, if old airplanes are your thing, you might be interested in the Antique Airplane Association fly-in this weekend in Blakesburg, Iowa. You have to be a member of their association to land in their grass strip, but if you're not, as you can see from the AOPA online flight planner, there are 2 other GA airports a short distance away. Look for our boss, Mark Baker. He will be there, and you can find more information on the Antique Airplane Association website.
And speaking of antique airplanes, the Waco Classic Company builds some of the most beautiful biplanes in the world. They are handmade at a factory in Battle Creek, Michigan, which just happens to be the location of our next regional fly-in. AOPA Live's Josh Cochran has more.
The Waco biplane is a legend in aviation. The original design dates back nearly 100 years, but you can still buy a new one today thanks to the Waco Classic Company. The company assembles the airplanes by hand in Battle Creek, Michigan. For company owner Peter Bowers, the airplane is unique.
So for me, this type of airplane it pushes all the right buttons for the sensory experience, the thrill. It's just a surreal opportunity and surreal experience to fly in one of these types of airplanes.
Waco makes the YMF 5D and Great Lakes. Both airplanes start out as metal tubes. Those tubes are meticulously welded together to create the frame for the airplane.
So the quality of the welding that we are looking for in these frames is the best in the world. So we make the best airplane in the world, and we only use the best materials and the best craftsmen to make it.
The frame then goes on to primary assembly, where the flight controls and side skins are installed. The fuselage and the wings then go to fabric area and onto the paint shop. The wings are also made by hand in the Waco factory. Even though the original design dates back to the 1920s, the current design and parts manufacturing is done digitally using CAD software. Many of the parts for the airplanes are made using a water jet cutting machine.
It's a wonderful machine. It uses an ultra-high pressure beam of water with some aggregate that's injected in it to cut just about anything and perfectly.
Waco pays extreme attention to detail in their manufacturing.
Every airplane is slightly evolved from the prior, where we're making production improvements or different things just to make it a better product.
Visitors to the AOPA Battle Creek Fly-In will have a chance to see the Waco factory in action.
Some of the seminars are going to be on the production floor, so you'll get to see the airplanes in different stages of production there. We expect to have a really nice collection of great airplanes on the ramp here as well. It's going to be a heck of a lot of fun.
Josh Cochran, AOPA Live.
And the Waco airplanes certainly are beautiful, wonderful craftsmanship, and if you go to the fly-in, you'll get a chance to see the manufacturing up close and personal. The woodwork in them is just astounding. And you can find out more about the fly-in and RSVP on AOPA's fly-in websites. Well, when we come back, we fly Piper's latest entry into the single-engine turboprop market.
And flying first-person view in a drone.
From your first skyward glance, the dream of flight compelled you. And from your first glimpse of a CIRRUS, you realized that dream had a name. CIRRUS Aircraft. Go where you've never been before.
The AOPA Foundation has selected 15 folks this year for flight training scholarships. The awards range from $2,500 to $12,000. One of the recipients is a disabled veteran. Mark Baker and AOPA Foundation Vice President Mike Tompos surprised the usually tough Marine with news of the scholarship in a Skype call.
Congratulations. You had a very compelling submission, and proud to say that you have won one of our scholarships for this year. What do you think about that?
I'll try not to tear up.
Okay.
It's, as you read it, it's been a very tough road. for me to even get back to where I might continue my flight training. It's, you know, it's been my entire life. It's something I've really, really wanted to do. And you know, I've had to jump through a few hoops, overcome some obstacles. So it's pretty amazing.
Dozer was wounded in Iraq and has struggled for a long time to regain his medical certificate. He's a volunteer for the Wounded Warrior Project, and he wants to use his pilot certificate to take other wounded warriors to visit their families. You can read more about all of the scholarship winners on our websites.
Wow, it's such a great opportunity, and what a great program for Dozer to take advantage of.
It really is. Good for him.
And speaking of new opportunities, we had a chance to fly the new Piper M600 single-engine turboprop. AOPA Editor-at-Large Tom Horn checked out all of its new high-tech features.
What's the latest news out of Piper Aircraft? It's the certification of its new M600, the most powerful, longest range, evolutionary design in the company's M series. It has a Pratt & Whitney PT6 turboprop engine of 600 shaft horsepower. The M600 has a new bonded wing, too. Its design gives it a 260-gallon fuel capacity. The result? A 1,484 nautical mile maximum range. The M600's interior dimensions are close to the rest of the airplanes in the M series. Up front, the M600 features Garmin's G3000 avionics suite, complete with envelope protection to guard against overspeeds, stalls, and bank excursions. I flew with Piper's Bart Jones on our visit. The airplane has great acceleration, and in no time we were climbing out at 1,300 feet per minute. Looking at the MFD's range rings, we can see that we can fly for more than 3 hours with fuel reserves, meaning we can go from Florida to Michigan non-stop. Now for a test of the overspeed protection. Lower the nose until we get the barber pole warning, and the nose rises automatically thanks to autopilot inputs. By the way, the M600's VMO is 251 knots. In another experiment, the autopilot roll servos fight any attempts to overbank the airplane. In case you enter an unusual attitude, pressing the level button on the glare shield will roll the M600 to straight and level and engage the autopilot. Get near the stall and the autopilot will automatically pitch the nose down, and the PFD will issue plenty of warnings. The M600 also has Emergency Descent Management, EDM, which will automatically descend the airplane if the pilot is unresponsive due to an incapacitation such as hypoxia. The M600 should prove popular with those needing more capability than that offered by entry-level single-engine turboprops. It's very stable, and you could say it stays put, the way a bigger airplane should. This helps during approaches and landings. How'd I do? Tom Horn, AOPA Live.
You can read all about the M600 in the September Turbine edition of AOPA Pilot magazine.
So, what's that ringing in your ears? Dr. Jonathan Sakier wants to know, and you may want to find out if it affects your flying.
Have you heard the expression from the world of fighting to have your bell rung? Well, if you suffer a blow to the head, this can happen immediately afterwards, or it may continue for the rest of your life, and we call this tinnitus. Sometimes associated with hearing loss or balance issues, tinnitus is a major problem because although everyone knows we use our ears to hear, did you know that they also play a role in balance and gait?
You can find Jonathan's full video report on tinnitus and how it affects pilots on the AOPA Live page of our websites.
And finally, let's go back to drones. For many, the big attraction of drone flying is the first-person point of view, dodging rocks and trees, taking risks you would never take in an airplane. Our Jim Moore headed to the U.S. National Drone Racing Championship and found 2 pilots who fly big iron by day and then switch to tiny plastic in their off hours.
Governor's Island, New York, where the National Drone Racing Championships venue was created in just a few days with tents and flags. Nylon gates to mark the courses flown first-person view, or FPV.
The best pilots in the country have all come here to test their skills against each other.
About 150 pilots qualified to take a shot at a piece of this year's $50,000 prize purse. And while most have little or no experience flying airplanes from the inside, there were at least 2 professional pilots in this field. Tyler Declan Darby flies Cessna Citations for a day job. He says FPV flying is every bit as thrilling.
With this, you're in the cockpit flying through, gates and around flags and by grandstands really low, really fast. And it's an adrenaline rush. You're just shaking. Sometimes you fly under through a gate around a flag, and you'll get so close you'll forget. And then you duck. You duck you're sitting in a chair, flying a toy airplane, and you get so immersed in the moment, you duck. And then when you do loops and rolls, your head is like doing this. It's awesome. It's awesome.
The Drone Sports Association landed major sponsors and a television deal in a bid to take this sport mainstream. Sports needs stars, and an airline pilot, Kevin Doherty, is one of them. He goes by Stinger Swarm on YouTube and posts freestyle videos for a growing number of followers. He said his flight training gave him an edge at first.
It does help in terms of spatial orientation when you're flying, and just situational awareness. As you're aware, as a pilot, you're always trying to think, as many steps ahead as you can. Like, what can I be doing now to be ready for what's coming up?
But stick and rudder skills only go so far.
All you have is a thrust vector and the direction you point it. And so you're always, I guess I came into it with a little bit of an understanding of physics and how flight characteristics work and energy management. And that was helpful, but that only gets you so far. Once you get a couple of months in, it's all equal playing field.
As if to prove the point, he ended this heat with controlled flight into a gate. Which happens a lot. Even the best pilots usually wind up walking the course to collect their aircraft. But friendships and camaraderie balance out some of those disappointments and frustrations.
You would have had this. I had it. Oh, you didn't ride the throttle.
You have to try it once.
Darby said GA pilots, particularly the professionals, will find in first-person view flying a reward that might surprise them.
Absolutely. It'll make them fall in love with flying again. Because, granted, we love flying, but sometimes it's work. Work is work sometimes, even if you love what you do. But this isn't work. These are grown men flying toy airplanes at 100 miles an hour. Do I have to say any more? Really?
On Governor's Island at the National Drone Racing Championships, I'm Jim Moore, AOPA Live.
So that's some impressive flying and a challenge, and I can tell you, I've had the opportunity to fly first-person view with using a drone, and I wholeheartly agree that if you aren't excited about flying before you do it, you will after. It's a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, it really is exciting, and looks like it'll be really challenging but fun. Well, that'll do it for us this week. See you next week.
And thanks for watching.